Great to have this worldwide online expo off to a great start. I'm super excited today to bring this presentation to you. And I'm just going to jump right in on the heels of the overview that Simon gave about the use of objects and start talking about how that looks inside of Wwise from a high level. And the first thing that I want to talk about is this audio object path as it flows through Wwise and arrives at the endpoints that Simon was describing. Next, we have what we call the main mix. This is a different channel-based configuration path through Wwise that can be delivered to a endpoint for processing. And lastly, we're going to talk about the pass-through mix. This is a unfiltered, unprocessed mix of sounds that travels through Wwise that can be delivered to an endpoint that's able to receive that. And one of the first things you'll notice in Wwise 2021.1 is that we've moved the audio devices to the top of the audio tab to indicate a kind of flow from the interactive music hierarchy through the actor mixer to the master mixer hierarchy and eventually to the audio device. And this is the intention there is to give you this feeling of flow through the hierarchies. And so we've brought the audio device work units and share sets into the audio tab along with the newly redesigned system audio device, which is our cross-platform system audio device that's been rewritten. We added a few cool things to it. So one of the things that this new system audio device presents when you double click it as part of the audio device editor view are a bunch of settings. And so the first time we've really brought to this cross-platform audio device authorable settings for the audio device. And these include things like the ability to allow 3D audio, specify a main mix configuration for speakers and headphones. You can make decisions about whether or not you're going to allow system audio objects to be used or not, as well as setting some minimum requirements for that. Lastly, on the settings side, we've moved the mastering suite to an effects setting on the audio device itself. Seeing as the mastering suite operates on the entire mix, this was the natural progression for us to present it as part of the audio device. Secondly, we've brought a bunch of new profiling information to the audio device editor to help you understand what's happening at both when you're authoring as well as when you're profiling Wwise running in your game engine. So this profiling information brings back metering information across these three paths, the main mix, the pass-through mix, and your individual audio objects. It will let you know whether 3D audio is active at your endpoint or not, whether the pass-through is active, things like your available system audio objects, how many objects you're using, and what the different channel configurations that have been initialized by the endpoint that Wwise is using in order to deliver audio for these endpoints. So it really does bring a shift in the way that you think about the audio device. Previously, there wasn't a lot of control. We left a lot of it under the hood. A ton of it just happened automagically. And so while we still have a level of automation that things just work, we've also gone to provide controls and profiling that give you better understanding as well as configurability. So more about these different paths that sound can take from the audio device to an endpoint. We talk about the main mix and system audio objects. These are paths through Wwise that can arrive at an endpoint configured for 3D audio and that can be processed binaurally when that technology is available. And the main mix takes a channel-based configuration and virtualizes that across whatever the output configuration selected by you in your system is configured for. So it will present a virtual presentation of a channel-based format such as ambisonics, your 714 Atmos configuration, or any other channel configuration. And in a 3D audio active endpoint, that main mix will be presented using binaural technologies when that's available, as long as you allow it. Similarly, audio objects, these tiny little precise positioned sounds from your game, from your experience, these are also allowed to be delivered to an endpoint that has 3D audio activated, and these individual positions and metadata then are taken by an endpoint and rendered positionally according to the best outputs, leveraging any binaural or spatial technology that exists. And lastly, this pass-through mix. This is a channel configuration that is delivered to an endpoint that may have, when 3D audio is active, and it allows you to route sounds through Wwise that play unfiltered in your head. So we'll keep moving through that, and I want to take you on a virtual sound walk and how that is authored in Wwise, and this will be a headphone-based perspective of authoring in Wwise for this virtual adventure. So strap in. First thing I want to talk about is color coding. We got the main mix in green. It's going to be representing our spatialized bed as we take our walk through the forest. We got this capybara, hot pink, floating in space right now, representing our tiny little audio objects and the forest creatures that'll be positioned individually as audio objects. And lastly, we have this idea of pass-through with unfiltered music. Everyone likes to kick some tunes as they're walking through the forest, so we'll have some representation there as we proceed on our virtual sound walk. So strap in tight, and again, keep that floating capybara in space in mind. Just makes me smile. But like every experience that starts from scratch, we begin with silence. And so as authors of interactive audio for these experiences, oftentimes this is where it all starts. And whether you choose a 7.1 channel configuration in order to start creating this background sound for your world, a 714, or an ambisonics-based full sphere representation of this ambient background, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about a main mix. It is a channel-based format that you can use for a 3D audio activated endpoint in order to create a binaurally processed representative mix that is optimized for a channel-based format. And that optimized piece is really important here because we don't have enough processing to do everything as objects. And so you're still making these decisions, and we think that in Wwise, we're making that easier to do with Wwise 21.1. So again, looking at that main mix path, this is our spatialized bed. This is a channel-based format. It flows through your sounds flow through Wwise to the master audio bus, where they're configured as in a channel configuration or as part of the main mix. And those flow to the endpoint where they are gathered as that mix and processed by the endpoint, either using an active 3D audio technology or just in a channel-based configuration depending on the output settings. And in Wwise, it's as easy as routing your audio bus to a same as main mix configuration. And as long as your audio bus flows through the master mixer without any additional channel configurations being applied, it will inherit the main mix that is set by the endpoint or the output configuration that's been set. And again, you can make choices about that. You can make choices about channel configurations along the way. But the same as main mix bus configuration that's new to Wwise 2021.1 makes it easy for you to unblock the sounds that you want to arrive at the main mix and author them expressly for that. So when 3D audio is active, sounds routed to same as main mix will inherit that main mix channel configuration of the audio device. The audio device will then produce a mix that's suitable to be processed using binaural technology. Again, unless something gets in the way, unless you've made a different choice about channel configurations as a parent above that. And for those of you familiar with Wwise, you know that the inheritance of the hierarchical layout in Wwise is a strength that you can leverage in order to accomplish the goals that you have for sound that's routed in Wwise. So when 3D audio is not activated, that same as main mix audio bus will inherit that main mix channel configuration of the audio device. And because 3D audio is not active, it won't get any additional binaural processing. And as we continue on our walk through the forest, I want to start layering in some additional sounds to make that forest come alive positionally, because with our background established and spatialized using a channel-based format, the next piece I want to add are those individual audio objects, that spatial precision that Simon was talking about, and that ability to deliver each of these positional sounds and all of their rich metadata to an endpoint that can make the decision about how to mix those for the output configuration in the best way possible. So in Wwise, we have this path that moves through as your sounds are routed to the master audio bus, and they arrive there with the ability to be preserved as audio objects and delivered to the audio device, and finally to their endpoint destination. And in Wwise, we've created a new bus configuration called audio objects that specifically allows for the sounds routed to that audio bus to be preserved as each individual sound and maintained as an audio object with their metadata included. And it's that metadata that you really want to think about as you're routing sounds that you want to maintain as audio objects, because at any point, if those audio objects are mixed to a channel configuration, that metadata gets mixed and kind of frozen into that channel configuration, and the metadata is no longer able to be delivered to an endpoint that's capable of 3D audio. So this new audio object bus configuration it is in the master mixer hierarchy on an audio bus. And when 3D audio is activated and allowed by the system audio device, And we have this idea of system audio objects. These are the audio objects available at an endpoint. When those are available for audio objects to be processed, they'll be rendered by the endpoint and processed using any binaural technology. But don't worry, because if you're delivering your sounds and you've authored everything for audio objects inside of Wwise, but 3D audio is not activated, or at some point you've reached your maximum system audio objects available on your platform, these audio objects will get mixed into the main mix channel configuration that's inherited by the audio device. So you really, you're making these discrete choices about sounds that you do want to preserve to the endpoint when that binaural functionality is activated. But it's no sweat, because when that technology is not active, they'll get mixed to the channel configuration of the audio device when your bus is configured as audio objects. And as we continue to walk, everyone likes to have their favorite tunes. Maybe you're listening strictly to that, the birds and the capybaras. What do they sound like? I don't even know. Actually, I did look up a video that's super cute. But some of us like to kick some tunes while we're trucking through the forest. And so we have this idea of a 2.0 channel configuration in our headphone-based virtual walkthrough, where we are routing our music to be mixed in a way that will not be processed by any binaural or 3D audio technology at the endpoint. And so this same as pass-through bus configuration would be set on a bus that we have our music routed to, that we don't want to be touched by any processing. And as long as nothing else is in the way, when 3D audio is activated and allowed, it'll inherit the pass-through channel configuration of the audio device, and the bus will produce a mix that's suitable for bypassing binaural technology at the endpoint. So easy peasy. It's going to make it all the way through. And that's if nothing's in the way. Again, if you, in the Wwise hierarchy of inheritance, if you apply a different bus configuration at the parent level, things will change. But in a same as pass-through mix configuration arriving to the audio device, that's what's going to happen. When 3D audio is not activated, it's just going to inherit the channel configuration of the audio device. No sweat either way. And so this is the full Wwise 2021.1 audio pipeline. It's been completely rewritten to facilitate these three paths and configurations of sound. And there's a lot of power and flexibility that comes with that. But there are a few other additional considerations that I want you to keep in mind as we move through this. We have this idea of custom metadata now that can be authored in the actor-mixer hierarchy. So there's a new tab in the property editor where you can add metadata to a specific sound or group of sounds that will allow for a mix behavior to be set as part of the Wwise system output settings metadata share set. So something you can leverage. Additionally, effects in the master mixer hierarchy. You're wondering to yourself, okay, but historically effects have mixed the signals when they arrive at an audio bus, and now we've unlocked that ability, and effects in the master audio bus, master mixer are now aware of audio objects, and audio objects can be processed individually on a per object basis. They can also be gathered. We can do some optimized calculations on them, and we can also do cool things with object configurations as they flow through an audio bus, and the future is ripe for experimentation there. But let's talk about one effect in particular. We may want to squash the dynamic range of those audio objects, those tiny little forest creatures. We just want to squash that a little bit and have a greater control over the dynamic range there. And so one of the things that we've done is we've taken the Wwise compressor and we've optimized it for audio objects. And so now the Wwise compressor will gather and evaluate the audio objects that flow to an audio bus, and it'll calculate the volume offset for each of those and then go back to each individual object and communicate that without mixing it. The key point here is it preserves the metadata and everything just keeps flowing. So remember that preservation of metadata that's really important if you want to preserve that all the way to the endpoint. The Wwise compressor has been optimized to help facilitate that, as well as the rest of our effects, which will take and process each audio object individually. So definitely something to keep an eye on, and we've brought a bunch of new features to the audio bus that give you a purview into what the status is at any given time. But another thing you might be wondering about is reverb. Whoa, the forest got dark. But maybe you want to add a reverb to the sounds of either your footsteps or these objects as they're flowing through. And one of the ways that you can do that is by routing your reverb auxiliary bus or an audio bus that your aux bus is routed to that same as pass-through mix configuration, either using game-defined auxiliary sends or user-defined auxiliary sends. And this essentially creates a path through the pass-through mix that directs the influence of the sounds that you've routed to the auxiliary bus and will deliver it to the pass-through mix in the same way we talked about before. And this will allow the reverbs to arrive in a unfiltered, unprocessed way to the endpoint. Now, there may be other considerations where you want to have that reverb spatialized, and you'll have to make those creative choices. We are enabling you to do all the cool things that you can think up, but this is the scenario where reverb arrives without additional coloration or filtering by the endpoint by using the same as pass-through mix configuration. So when 3D audio is activated and allowed, it will inherit the pass-through configuration of the audio device. That bus will produce a mix suitable for bypassing the binaural technology. And when 3D audio is not active, it'll inherit the channel configuration of the audio device. So no worries, things will fall back in the right way. So just to bring all of this back into a perspective, I wanted to give you a high-level overview of this headphone-based authoring that we've done in Wwise over the course of this virtual sound walk. From the master audio bus to the audio device, we started by routing our audio objects to an audio bus with a bus configuration of audio objects, which will then each be delivered individually to the audio device, preserving their metadata and communicated to the endpoint for rendering either using a binaural technology or to the output configuration format. Secondly, we have the ambient background sounds in our project routed to an ambient backgrounds bus. And this has been configured for the same as main mix configuration. It's unimpeded by any other parent buses. In this case, the master audio bus will apply the main mix configuration set by the endpoint and deliver this main mix channel configuration in a format that will either be spatialized by any kind of binaural technology at the endpoint or preserved in its channel configuration established by the endpoint at the output. And again, you can make choices in the master mixer hierarchy to optimize the channel configuration that you want at any time. So if you want to set a explicit channel configuration for aspects of your ambient background with the best intention, you can absolutely still define that in a way that fits the experience that you're trying to create. And lastly, we have this pass-through mix, and we've taken our music and the reverb auxiliary sends, and we've routed those to a same as pass-through mix configuration. Those are routed to the audio device and delivered to their destination at the endpoint according to the pass-through mix configuration in our headphone example here as a 2.0 configuration. And it wouldn't be wise if we hadn't created the full circle of profiling and authoring experience. So for all of the best intentions that we have as authors for interactive audio, really understanding what's happening at runtime is a huge piece of validating your authoring choices. And so we have a whole suite of new views to help you understand audio objects as they're routed through Wwise and profiling that information at the endpoint in order to help you understand the travels. And one thing I hope you notice and take value in are these audio bus statuses that we present on all of the audio buses now. So now at runtime and at authoring time, you can understand the status of an audio bus at any point and know what configuration is either set explicitly by you or set by your endpoint or authoring environment. Ultimately, the goal, as Simon has said, Simon says, author for the best audio across all outputs. Let Wwise handle the minutia of configuring for the different potential results and all of the different ways that people listen to audio from these games and experiences. But make sure that you're delivering the greatest possible fidelity to an endpoint so that it can make the smart decision about how to configure that in the best way for whatever setting is in place. And so with that, I'm going to say thank you. I have really enjoyed being able to present that. It's been an exciting journey. We brought in a bunch of folks from the Audiokinetic team to help us validate this work, as well as experts from the community. Over the last year, we had consistent group meetups with content matter experts who've already been authoring with audio objects across different platforms and experiences, VR and console. And it's with their help and the help of everyone at Audiokinetic that we've been able to arrive at this place with something that we think is an accessible way to start experimenting with the strength that audio objects, the spatial precision that it can help deliver. And it really puts that technology in your hand. And back to, again, Simon's presentation, we have this intersection of technology, education, and creativity that you as creative audio practitioners, well, it's in your hands today. Jump in and let us know how it goes. This is a feature that we think unlocks great potential for folks, and we're really excited to hear what you come up with, and we look forward to having any feedback that you have